Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of just trying to survive and learn to love along the way. This will be part 23, chapters 44 and 45. Chapter 44 of Quirks and a Plan. Katsuki's head is throbbing. So much so that he has a hard time following what the freak with the hands is saying. He freaks a little when the guy mentions his boss, and how his boss wants something from shitty Deku of all people. Katsuki is smart enough to realize how Deku got his quirk. He's known the fucker his entire life. Quirks don't just appear 10 years late. Pair that with his weird relationship with All Might, and how similar their quirks are, as well as the number one hero's dwindling power. It was pretty fucking simple to figure out. All Might gave Izuku his power. So it shouldn't be a surprise when that handsy fucker mentions that his boss wants Deku's quirk. From the way he acts, Katsuki had thought that Shigaraki was the leader of their group of losers. But from Izuku's reaction, it seems like this boss is super powerful. Why the fuck doesn't Katsuki know who this guy is? He can hear Izuku's sharp intake when Shigaraki opens the door and announces the man as All for One. The guy is creepy as hell, but the gag in his mouth prevents him from being too obvious about his reaction. The man steps into the room slowly, and a smaller man follows suit. He's dressed in a ragged doctor's coat and carries a briefcase containing unknown horrors. All for One barely spares him a glance before approaching Izuku. He grabs a fistful of hair and yanks his head to the side towards Katsuki, to bare his neck. The villain gestures the doctor forwards. The man pulls a long needle from his briefcase before he approaches. Hey, get away! Deku's cries are quiet, but they're all that can be heard in the room. Katsuki wants to yell too, but this fucking gag prevents that. The doctor barely hesitates before pressing the thing in Deku's neck. He makes an odd whining sound at the intrusion, but it cuts off as the needle sinks further into his throat. He finally presses the plunger when the needle is sunk in all the way. Izuku makes an odd face as the man pulls the needle out and tosses it to the side. All for One lets go of his hair, but his head stays where it is, wide eyes trained on Katsuki. It'll just need a minute to sink in. God, the doctor's voice is annoying as hell. What did you do to me? Deku still faces him, but he turns those wide eyes on the doctor. The man looks at All for One warily, before replying. It's something of my own invention. Just a little injection to make you and your quirk more compliant. He steps towards Izuku and turns his head, peering into his eyes. All right, he should be ready now. The handsy fucker looks all too excited as All for One steps up to Deku again. He places a hand on his forehead, and everyone in the room stills. Izuku gasps and starts whimpering. Then he screams. It's so pain-filled that it has Katsuki shrinking back away from the awful sound. The screaming cuts off as abruptly as it started when All for One pulls his hand away. The only sounds now are Izuku's sobs. His face is red and his whole body is shaking. Katsuki itches to get out of these restraints and blow all these fuckers up. All for One whirls on the doctor, who backs away a little, hands raised. You said this would work. Wait, it should. Just try it again. Maybe we didn't wait long enough after all. The doctor sags in relief when the villain turns back around. Izuku tenses up, and his sobs get louder when All for One replaces his hand on his face. It's only seconds before he's screaming again. They're quieter this time. Looks like shitty Deku is running out of energy. Green swirls of lightning start dancing up All for One's arm, and Shigaraki starts laughing joyously. The sound cuts off when All for One is blasted backwards. Everyone looks at Izuku, his body producing those green pieces of lightning. He looks awful, but he's still conscious enough to speak. Stay away from me. Katsuki has to strain himself to hear him, and he's sitting right next to him. The shitty villain stands up and turns back towards the doctor. You knew what would happen if you failed me. The man starts backing away, but he hits the bar and has nowhere to go. Just try again. It should work this time. I studied All Might's body and blood extensively, so I know. Does this boy look like All Might to you? Obviously, his body has taken the quirk better, you idiot. All for One lashes a hand forward and it sinks into the doctor's chest. The man's eyes go wide as All for One pulls his hand out, red with the man's blood. The man drops to the floor, lifeless, and All for One simply grabs a towel from the bar and turns, wiping his hand off as he steps back to Izuku. How about this? If you don't give me that quirk, I'll just kill your friend. Katsuki tries to yell at him, tries to tell him to not listen to the stupid bastard. Who knows what'll happen if that man gets his quirk? The stupid fucking gag blocks it all. Izuku braces himself as All for One places his hand back on his head. The most he can manage is a few whimpers before his body slumps. All for One pulls his hand away and Deku's eyes are closed. He turns to Shigaraki. Make him wake up. He can't relinquish the quirk while unconscious. The man takes a step towards him, but pauses at a knock on the door. Kami no pizza. Shouta hops into the first ambulance before it heads out. As much as he knows he should stay with the class, he'll leave it to Vlad to wait with them until they're all on their way to get checked out. He needs to make sure his more seriously injured students make it to the hospital in one piece. The first few ambulances to arrive were escorted by police cars, and Shouta had handed off the fire villain to the first face he recognized. He'd then texted Tsukauchi to meet him at the hospital, before jumping into the back of Kirishima's ambulance. Sensei? The boy's eyes are droopy, and his face awfully pale compared to the slowly darkening ring of bruises around his neck. What is it? He leans towards him a little, wary of getting in the EMT's way. Did you find them? Is Katsuki okay? Every time he blinks, Kirishima takes longer to reopen his eyes. I'm sorry. The kid's face falls, and he closes his eyes as a few tears run towards his ears. He doesn't reopen them. Shouta sits back and pulls his phone from his pocket, ignoring the EMT's glare as he does so. There's an important call he needs to make. Zashi picks up on the third ring. Sho, I was just about to call you. What's up? There's been an incident. How quickly can you get to the hospital closest to training camp? Pretty quickly with midnight driving. What's going on, Sho? Did something happen with Izuku? Yeah, I'll explain there. Sho, what? He hangs up. As guilty as he feels for hanging up on his husband, there's absolutely no way he can tell him over the phone. Besides, it's better if he tells all the pros that Tsukauchi rounds up at the same time, so he doesn't have to repeat himself. By the time they pull up to the ER, Shouta can spot Hisashi's bright yellow hair waiting by the door. His husband gapes at the sight of them, hurrying Kirishima through the doors. Shouta doesn't follow, choosing instead to pull Zashi in for a tight hug. How'd you get here so quickly? You realize the training camp was only just out of town, right? So the hospital isn't far from home. Hisashi pulls away as he speaks, eyeing Shota's condition. What the hell happened, Shouta? He turns towards Midnight. Both heroes are in their costumes, so they both took the time to get changed before heading to the hospital. He knows neither of them were on duty tonight. Not here. I'll explain inside. He eyes the room number Tsukauchi had sent him before leading the other two in that direction. They find themselves at a conference room, and he pauses in the doorway. This is more heroes than he expected. Seated at the table is Tsukauchi, of course, but Best Jeanist, Edshot, Kamui Woods, Gran Torino, Mount Lady, Endeavor, and even All Might are here. Tsukauchi gestures for the three of them to sit before he opens his mouth. All right. Eraserhead will get you guys up to speed with the situation. Chapter 45 of Nox and a Rescue. Everyone looks so angry by the time Shouta finishes his explanation. Endeavor looks about ready to blow up the table they're seated at, and that had started before Shouta got to the part about finding Yaoyorozu and Todoroki injured. As much as I want to send all the heroes here in to rescue them, I don't think we can. Everyone turns to Tsukauchi. Zashi opens his mouth, and Shouta knows that it's in protest. We found the location to another one of their hideouts 2 days ago. We were waiting until we could assemble a team of heroes to help with a raid. I want us to arrest as many members of the League of Villains as possible, which means splitting up the forces and hitting both hideouts at once. Unfortunately, Tsukauchi is right. If one hideout is hit and they suspect knowledge of the other one, who knows how far underground the League will flee. It will also be helpful in case they have that warp villain with them. If they flee the bar location and warp to the other hideout, then we'll be able to catch them by surprise, almost guaranteeing the success of the rescue. I'm assuming you've already picked the teams? Zashi looks concerned. Shouta feels the same way. If they're not on the team to rescue their students, their son, they would feel like the worst kind of parents. Shouta already does, for letting this happen. I have. Present Mike, I want you, Eraserhead, Edgeshot, All Might, and Kamui Woods on the bar rescue team. Thank fuck. So that leaves Endeavor, Best Jeanist, Gran Torino, Mount Lady, and Midnight for the raid team. I will be accompanying the rescue team. Tsukauchi stands, and the rest follow suit. We'll discuss the finer details on the way. I want this done as soon as possible. We'll radio in our positions, and I'll signal you all when to go. Any questions? The heroes all shake their heads. Then they're off, wishing each other good luck as they leave the hospital. Shouta is paired with Edgeshot. The sun is nearly up by the time they pile up behind the door. As soon as Tsukauchi gives them the signal, Edgeshot knocks twice and yells out, "Kami no pizza!" They wait the 7 seconds that they had been ordered to before bursting through the door at the same time that the far wall is destroyed. The first thing he notices is the body. It's not one of his kids, thank God. But the body means that even more of his students witnessed a murder tonight. He turns to his left and finds them. He's on rescue duty as opposed to capture duty, so he ignores the fighting and heads straight for the kids. Zashi does the same from his end of the room, so Shouta stops in front of Bakugo. He starts untying his hands as he surveys the boy. He's a little bruised and bloody and has a gag shoved in his mouth, but he seems otherwise uninjured. As soon as his hands are free, Bakugo rips the gag from his mouth and reaches down to help Shouta untie his feet. Once that's done, he turns to see how the rest of the team is doing. Kamui Woods and Edgeshot have nearly all the villains tied up. The only ones free are Shigaraki, the warp villain, and some big creep that Shota's never seen before. There's a tug on his sleeve. Shouta doesn't want to turn his back on the standoff in front of him, so he tilts his head down to show he's listening. "Sensei, you need to erase the big guy's quirks." Quirks, as in more than one. This has to be All for One. He's about to activate his quirk when All Might steps in the way. It seems like he's just trying to help and cover the others, but he's also blocking Shota's sight of All for One. God damn it. "All for One, what do you want with my students?" "Well, I only wanted one, and I think you know what I want from him." Shouta turns to his husband. Izuku is limp in his arms, and Zashi has a worried frown on his face. Kamui Woods and Edgeshot are slowly retreating, pulling the villains they'd restrained with them. Pretty soon it's just Shouta, Hizashi, All Might, and the kids in the room. He catches Zashi's eye and gestures for him to get out. When All for One catches him moving, he lunges forward, but All Might moves and blocks his path. Shota's field of vision is clear. He activates his quirk, and All for One stumbles. At the loss of his quirk, the man zeroes in on him and steps forwards, but All Might plants a fist in his face to stop him. It throws him backward, and All Might looks surprised at the ease of the action. He turns to Shouta and grins before throwing himself at the villain once more. Despite the loss of his quirks, All for One is strong. He's capable of holding his own against All Might. Before long, Shouta feels the itch in his eyes. Ever since the attack at the USJ, he's had trouble keeping his quirk going for long periods of time. He blinks. All for One gets a few superpowered seconds that he makes count. He grows his arm and uses it to throw All Might through the wall, right by their heads. The number one hero is quick to recover, and Shouta reactivates his quirk. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots Kamui Woods using his quirk to reach for Bakugo. Without turning, Shouta ushers him to his feet and begins to herd him in the pro's direction. Kamui wraps a wooden limb around Bakugo and begins to pull him out, but they completely forgot about the other villain in the room. Shigaraki reaches for his student, and Shouta turns his eyes on him. The more quirks he erases, the harder it gets, and who knows how many quirks of All for One he's erasing. Thankfully, he has it in him to erase at least one more. Shigaraki's hand brushes Bakugo's leg, but without his quirk, there's no damage. Still, Kamui jerks Bakugo up to avoid more hands, and in the process, knocks the boy's head against the roof. He's unconscious by the time Kamui gets him out of there. Jesus fuck, some of these guys need to work on their rescue work. Nezu would gladly let them use the USJ to train, but he doubts some of these younger pros would utilize it all that much. Shouta blinks again. He's quicker to reactivate his quirk this time. He just wants this over with. He sees Shigaraki reach the warp villain. He wants to move, to do something to stop them, but at this point it'll do nothing. Maybe they'll warp to the other location and get caught anyways. All Might delivers one final blow to All for One that has him sailing through the hole in the wall, right towards the arrested villains and the kids. Shouta rushes forward, but finds there's no need. All for One lays limp on the ground, and Tsukauchi is wearily approaching. All Might jumps down to cover him while he places quirk-canceling cuffs on him. And there's an undeniable reduction in tension as soon as they're on the man. Shouta jumps from the bar and runs to the waiting ambulances. Izuku is being loaded into one of them, still unconscious. Zashi is hovering protectively, still managing to stay out of the paramedics' way despite being glued to their son's side. He approaches his husband and resists the temptation to draw the other man into a hug. There'll be time for that later. Hey, I'll ride with Bakugo. You sure, Sho? Yeah, looks like you have this handled. He gives Hisashi's hand a tight squeeze before he heads for their other student. He climbs into his second ambulance of the day just as the sun crests a nearby building. Shouta doesn't think he'll be sleeping anytime soon. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 45 of Just Trying to Survive and Learn to Love Along the Way. Let me know your thoughts and reactions in the comments below for me. Chapter 46 will be up next, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.